The war on Iran enters its fourth month. The Strait of Hormuz remains closed. Suppliers of critical resources stuck.
Beyond oil and gas, a whole host of commodities actually that have been impacted.
Initially, many countries were able to live off their stockpiles of crucial commodities. But reserves are dwindling, and the next few months could show us the real impact of the war.
So if the war persists, it can have long-term effects that would be difficult to reverse.
The cost of the conflict is showing up on Asia's tables.
Minsan yan nga, isang beses kakain kami.
From fertilizer to fuel, how is the Iran war disrupting Asia's food supply?
Mga tambayan sila. Wala na mga hindi na sila makapagpalaot.
Gera sa Iran, sa ibang bansa, sa Middle East, sino ba ang dapat pagsakripisyo? Kami ba dapat?
It's spring harvest season for rice here in Bangladesh. At this paddy field in Manikganj, farmer Jalal Sada started sowing seedlings in December in what is known as the borrow season.
সার লাগানোর পর ধান লাগানোর পরে আমরা যেই মোটামুটি 4 দিন 5 দিনের ভিতরে আবার সার সিটার খেতে কমপক্ষে যে 50 কেজি সার দেওয়া লাগে।
Agriculture is the backbone of Bangladesh. While the South Asian nation is largely self-sufficient in rice, the stuff that makes plants grow is another matter. Bangladesh uses over 6 million metric tons of fertilizer each year. Close to 80% of this is imported, while the rest is produced at its own factories. But now, the country's fertilizer stocks are choked. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz on the 4th of March in retaliation to US and Israeli strikes days prior. About a third of Bangladesh's imported fertilizer flows through the Persian Gulf. These have mostly stopped coming. Also halted were the main ingredient needed to make its own fertilizer, liquefied natural gas, or LNG.
At least 2/3 of the supply is coming from the Gulf countries. And when the LNG supply is short, then we suffer from production of fertilizer.
The process to make fertilizer from gas starts with steam methane reforming, where natural gas reacts with steam under high heat. This produces hydrogen and carbon dioxide. Nitrogen, extracted from the air, is then added to the hydrogen to form ammonia. Finally, the ammonia is mixed with the carbon dioxide to produce a type of fertilizer called urea.
There are about 5 fertilizer factories under the management of the government, BCIC. But for shortage of LNG, gas supply, we are not producing.
In March, the shortage of gas forced Bangladesh to shut 5 of its 6 fertilizer plants. Last month, 3 resumed operations after sourcing gas from elsewhere at higher rates. The Ashganj fertilizer and chemical company remains shut.
আমাদের কাঁচামাল প্রধান কাঁচামাল 3টা একটা হচ্ছে প্রাকৃতিক গ্যাস বাতাস এবং পানি এখানে হাইড্রোজেন এবং কার্বন থাকে তো আমাদের নাইট্রোজেন সার উৎপন্ন করার জন্য হাইড্রোকার্বন আমাদের লাগবে
Fertilizers are broadly categorized into 3 types: nitrogen-based, phosphorus-based, and potassium-based. Urea, a nitrogen-based fertilizer, is the most widely used by farmers.
So, fertilizers are absolutely essential for South Asia and even globally because this large population that we have to feed, you cannot just do using organic nutrients, etc. You need chemical fertilizers. Bangladesh, India, also other countries like Nepal, Sri Lanka, they all need urea and other fertilizers to sustain food production at a level where they can feed their own populations.
In the early weeks of the war on Iran, attention focused on fuel shortages. Now, as planting season begins anew and fertiliser stockpiles run low, governments are scrambling to secure supplies of this critical farm input.
And unlike oil, where a number of countries do maintain some strategic reserves, countries, I would say, have some buffer stocks, but not that many months of supply of fertilizer. And you can't substitute fertilizer for some other products, which is feasible in the case of oil. You could switch over to, let's say, a coal-driven power plant. That's not possible in fertilizers.
Before the Iran war started, Bangladesh was already facing a shortage of gas. The Ashganj plant was due to restart operations this year before the conflict derailed its plans.
তবুও এটা যদি চালু হয় তাহলে আমাদের বাংলাদেশে যে সারের চাহিদা তার 10 থেকে 12% চাহিদা এই কারখানা উৎপাদনে থাকলে সম্ভব হবে।
গতবার হয়তো 1 কেজি যেই ইউরিয়া যেই পুরোটা ছিল এবার যে 28 টাকা দাম কম সার দেওয়া লাগছে ইচ্ছা নিচ্ছে কাজে কম সাররাও দাম না থামে রয়েছে।
Since the US attack on Iran, commercial traffic is down to a handful of Iran-approved ships every day. Missile and drone strikes to Qatar's Ras Laffan have cost the world 1/5 of its LNG supply. The Qatar fertiliser company QAFCO, which supplies 14% of the world's urea, has also declared force majeure.
So beyond oil and gas, a whole host of commodities actually that have been impacted. So for instance, petrochemicals, naphtha prices, sulfur, resins, and a lot of this actually feeds into different industries. So it's an input into petrochemical production, pharmaceutical production, plastics, that's getting impacted. And then you have some specialty gases like helium, for instance, where supply is being constrained. Now this is used in semiconductor manufacturing. There's actually a cascading impact through the supply chain we are seeing right now.
Closure of the strait has sent fertiliser prices climbing, pushing the highs of 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine.
So in the case of urea, like prior to the war, countries were contracting urea at, let's say, about $490 per ton. And a lot of the new contracts that have now been done have seen urea prices at $950 to $1,000 per ton. So there's been a doubling of urea prices. In the case of some of the other fertilizers like ammonia, phosphate, the increases are lesser, but on average, fertilizer prices are up 40 to 50%. It is actually impacting the cost for a number of farmers.
For Bangladesh, rice is a staple for its population of 177 million. Any increase in price of farming inputs can have wide impact.
About 70% of the population of the country is rural, and they are somehow or other related to agricultural production. And almost 45% of our labor force is engaged in agriculture. And we all depend on food prepared locally.
Fertiliser is just one of the issues related to the conflict that have got farmers fretting.
যুদ্ধের কারণে যে ঠিকমতো পানি খেতে দিতে পারে নাই, ডিজেল পাওয়া যায়, তেল পাওয়া যায় নাই, তেল না পাওয়ার মেশিন বন্ধ রাখছে, পানি দিতে পারে নাই, তেলের দামও বাড়তি, মেলা বাড়তি। ওই যে বললাম যে নামমাত্র কিছু তেল যে পাম্পেতে যদিও দেওয়া দিছে, যে কিন্তু সকালবেলা লাইনে দাঁড়াইছে 200 মানুষ, পাইতে পাইতে রাত্রি হয়ে গেছে।
As the prices of fuel, gas and shipping rise, low-income households are feeling the pinch.
আমি করাইল বস্তিতে নৌকা চালাই, প্রায় 16-17 বছর নৌকা চালাই, আজিরা হিসাবে নৌকা চালাই, 650 টাকা পাই। আমরা ফ্যামিলিতে মানুষ হয়েছি 4 জন, মাইয়া 3 জন, ছেলে 1 জন। এই নৌকা দুন চালায়, ঘরের জন্য বাসা বাড়িতে কাজ করে।
Dulal Mia has to borrow money for rent and his children's education.
তো রই কেরি না খাইয়ে লইয়া বাজার বাজার সব জিনিস, মাল জিনিসের সব জিনিসের দাম বেড়ে গেছে। না ওই তো ওই না হরে কি এখন খাওয়ান লাওয়ানেই তো কষ্ট। আগে যদি 50 টাকার মাছ কিনতাম খাইতে পারতাম 3 জন, আর 300 টাকার মাছ কিনলে আমি খাইতে না 3 জনেও।
All this comes at an inopportune time for Bangladesh. 2024 protests had ousted long-serving Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. After a transitory period, the country just elected a new government earlier this year. Even as the country tries to get back on stable footing, it faces debt burdens, depleted foreign reserves, and slowing growth. And now, a potential food shock.
This year, the food stock is likely to reduce by 2% in the world. And in Bangladesh, due to shortage of production in the Boru season, the total shortage in food supply will be near 5%. And that will fuel prices at the grassroots level, and this will also increase food inflation.
Because food is also very important from a social perspective, typically what we've seen is governments intervene through subsidies, and therefore we could see the fiscal positions of a number of countries worsen, and they may be forced to actually cut back on some of the more productive expenditure. It has an impact on the cost of living of people in these countries, so it impacts their voting decisions, and therefore it tends to have political consequences.
The fertiliser strain is felt elsewhere. For Southeast Asia, over 10% of its fertiliser imports come from the Middle East. There are reports that farmers across the region are cutting down production. If the war does not end this month, the World Food Programme estimates that 9.1 million people in Asia could be pushed into severe hunger.
Across a lot of countries in Asia, India, Vietnam, Thailand, this is basically the rice planting season. You have the runway right now to actually use some of the buffer stock, but it's essentially in the pipeline, the potential food shock. So, the risk is that we see the impact more down the line, either by the end of this year or next year.
What will happen if the world's agricultural baskets can't produce enough food? The time for sowing has just started in India, when fertiliser application is at its peak. Farmer Yashpal mainly grows sugarcane and paddy on his plot of land.
अप्रैल से शुरू होकर मई जून तक धान तैयार होता है, यानी लगना। उसके बाद में नवंबर में ये धान कट जाता है फिर हमारा। अब युद्ध के बाद में जो है, अब हम जो खाद अब खरीदने की कोशिश करेंगे, क्योंकि अभी लगाना शुरू होगा। तो अभी दुकानों पे फ़िलहाल मौजूद है, पर जब जैसे जैसे किसान इसे लगाएगा तब इसकी दिक्कत ज़्यादा बढ़नी शुरू हो जाती है।
India is one of the world's largest users of fertiliser at 60 million tonnes, behind only China. Much of its urea is produced domestically, but it also imports more urea than any other country.
Nearly 20 to 25% of our urea requirements, approximately 70% of the phosphorus, and almost entire quantities of potassic fertilizers, we depend on imports. And imports, particularly urea or phosphate, some of the Middle East countries, and this kind of supply chain disruptions happens, so it is definitely going to affect domestic prices of these inputs. So likewise, we import about 60% of our LNG requirement, and most of it comes from these Middle East countries. And LNG also serves as a feedstock for urea production.
Gas supplies have been cut by 1/3, and the strain on LNG has caused local urea production to drop. Fertiliser sellers like this one in Kashipur are forced to raise their prices. Their products come from manufacturing plants in India. While the wholesale price of urea has remained flat, other types of fertilisers have gone up by about 50 to 150 rupees per bag.
यूरिया खाद का एक छोटा सा डेटा देता हूँ। तो अप्रैल में हमने 2 से 3 गाड़ी लास्ट ईयर परचेज़ करी थी। इस साल मुझे एक भी गाड़ी नहीं मिल पाई है। एक गाड़ी मतलब 350 से 400 बैग्स। तो पिछले साल से तो बहुत कम है परचेज़। तो बोझ हमें डालना पड़ेगा। अगर हमारा मार्जिन बढ़ता तो हम मैनेज कर लेते अपने मार्जिन में से डिस्काउंट दे के, बट हमारा मार्जिन ही लिमिटेड है। इससे कम मार्जिन पे काम करेंगे तो हमारा काउंटर सर्वाइव नहीं कर पाएगा। शट डाउन करना पड़ेगा खाद का काम हमें।
जब हमें पीछे से कोई सामान या खाद या नहीं मिलेगा तो फिर हम अपनी फसल को उसे कम मात्रा में ही देंगे, क्योंकि हमें पूर्ति करनी पड़ती है। उसे हम अपनी फसल में थोड़ा कम मात्रा में करके फिर और जो लोकल है उनको लगा के फिर पूर्ति करते हैं। कम मात्रा दी जाती है यूरिया की और डीएपी की। दिक्कत आती है फसल में, जो है हानि होती है, यानी पैदावार में कमी आती है।
There are 3 crop seasons in India: Kharif, Rabi and Zaid. Every year, India uses 40 million tons of urea. According to the government, the country had 6.2 million tons of the crop nutrient in its reserves as of March.
We have just harvested the Rabi crop where we didn't require much of the fertilizer. In the forthcoming Kharif season crop, if the fertilizer prices increase, and generally what we find is that fertilizer is not much responsive to this kind of changes, because farmers have to apply. They will buy it even if the prices rise to sustain. So the margin, of course, who will bear that cost? It is basically the government. And when this kind of crisis happens, government again raises the subsidy for the fertilizers.
What Government of India had done was we had bigger stocks of urea and other fertilizers than compared to even the last year. So that helped. The second is we have prioritized gas allocation for urea production. Government of India is also trying to secure urea, DAP and potash from other countries that are not affected directly by the Strait of Hormuz, and they are rerouting some of it through the Cape of Good Hope. So that increases the transport cost, but at least secures fertilizers for us.
India had in the past banned rice exports during times of shortage. For now, Delhi has not signalled at export restrictions. That's a relief, given Indian rice accounts for over 40% of world rice exports, shipping more than the next 3 largest suppliers combined. The shutdown of the strait, though, has left an estimated 400,000 tons of rice stranded at ports or at sea. Sri Jagdamba Agrico is one of the leading rice exporters in India, selling over $100 million worth of basmati annually.
हमारा मुख्य खरीदार अगर बासमती की बात करता हूँ मैं पर्टिकुलर की बासमती की ईरान, इराक और सऊदी अरेबिया। टोटल हिंदुस्तान से 6 मिलियन टन लास्ट ईयर हमने बासमती का एक्सपोर्ट किया था, जो कि एक रिकॉर्ड बासमती का एक्सपोर्ट था, जिसमें से 3 मिलियन इन 3 देशों के लिए गया था और बाकी ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड में। हमारा तकरीबन 1-1.5 लाख टन चावल, बासमती चावल, जो कि रास्ते में बंदरगाहों पे अटका पड़ा है, और इतना ही चावल हमारा हिंदुस्तान की बंदरगाहों पे अटक गया था। जो हिंदुस्तान की बंदरगाहों पे चावल अटका, वो भारत सरकार ने हमारी एसोसिएशन के साथ मिलके उन्होंने उस पर कदम उठाए और पूरा हमारा जितने भी एक्सपोर्टर थे उनकी मदद की। हमारे ऊपर जितना पोर्ट का डैमेज था वो सारा उन्होंने हमारा माफ़ कर दिया और हमने वो चावल पूरा का पूरा बैक टू टाउन अपने वेयर हाउसेस के अंदर लेकर वापस आ गए।
When something happens in India on the agricultural front, because we are the largest consumer as well as a producer also, so the world awakes. So India will import, prices will keep on increasing. So India has been, benevolent to all the countries which are in its neighborhood, whether it is Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and always provided, food security support, even during COVID-19 times also. If this kind of blockage remains, our perishables will be highly affected. Basically, shrimps, fruits and vegetables. If the supplies from India, they don't reach to the countries where they require, so definitely it will have a ripple effect there in terms of increase in the prices, in less affordability to food to their populations.
Then there is also the cost of shipping. Fuel price and insurance premium hikes add to the expense.
जहाँ पर $600 पर कंटेनर का फ्रेट था, वो आज $3000 पर कंटेनर का फ्रेट आ गया, जो कि 5 गुना वृद्धि हो गई है, जिसका प्राइस के ऊपर, हमारे लॉस प्रॉफिट के ऊपर बहुत बड़ा इम्पैक्ट हमारी ट्रेड के ऊपर आया है। खरीदार चावल की, बासमती चावल की डिमांड निरंतर बनी हुई है, पर उसका जाने का रास्ता प्रॉपर नहीं है, इसलिए हमें बेचने में भी डर लगता है, क्योंकि वार के चांसेस की वजह से इंश्योरेंस भी इसका कवर नहीं मिलता है।
Looking ahead, the worst could still be yet to come. A super El Niño is forecasted for this year, which will put food supply under more pressure. El Niño is a weather pattern that brings drier and warmer weather to parts of the world.
So El Nino may result in droughts or long dry spells in the middle of, let's say, rice growing season that's about to start. If that happens, the production may go down. If it happens in Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, where we have irrigation, farmers will irrigate to make up for rainfall shortage. If it happens in, let's say, Jharkhand or parts of peninsular India where we don't have irrigation, then it will have bigger effect.
The risk of like an outright ban or protectionist measure starts to increase once you start seeing prices pick up substantially. So that is a risk we need to monitor, perhaps for next year. But right now, I think that risk is low.
Still, it's not just food prices going up. Cooking gas now costs about 7% more per cylinder in India. And for poorer families, all these small increases quickly add up.
कमाते कोटी में कमाती है, हमारे बेटा है, पोती है और मैं हूँ। बेटी का अभी शादी कर दिया, तीन जने हैं परिवार में। महीना का 12,000 है। हमारे पोती वो सब्जी बेचती है और साइकिल भी बनाती है, देखो मिल जाते हैं। और उसको तो इतना नहीं है जो बहुत सारे साइकिल आए जाते नहीं, एक दो को भी आ जाते हैं।
Salmati's family now survives on 2 meals a day.
मैंने बंद कर दिया, सिलेंडर बंद कर दिया, लकड़ियाँ से खाना बनती है। इतना मुसीबत है, इतना मुसीबत कुछ कहीं ना जाए, बहुत मुसीबत है। सिलेंडर भूखे रह जाओ, इतना परेशान है, सिलेंडर के लिए कुछ कहीं ना जाए, बहुत दुखी है।
Half of average Indian household spends half of its budget on food, close to half, 47-48%. So if food prices rise by even a little bit, the squeeze will be felt by households. They'll cut back. You can cut back on food only so much. They'll cut back on other expenses, right? Health expenses, education expenses, etc. So if the war persists, it can have long-term effects that would be difficult to reverse on health, nutrition, and other human welfare markers.
We've seen how the Iran war is affecting farms and food crops, but out at sea, fishermen are facing just as much pressure. Here in Navotas, the fishing capital of the Philippines, fishermen used to set sail at dawn. Since the Iran war, boats aren't leaving the shore at all.
Malaking pinagkaiba ngayon dahil sobrang taas ng gasolina. Dati ang gasolina nasa 54, ngayon 94 isang litro. Kailangan mabili ka ng mga 50 liters, 40 liters ng gasolina. Balikan na yun.
Fisherman Teodoro Budoy Escarial used to take home 1,000 pesos a day. Now he earns 600 to 700 pesos. Rising fuel prices could not have come at a worse time for him. He had just lost the mussel farm he harvested from, cleared to make way for land reclamation in the waters nearby. From a 5-minute boat ride, it now takes him half an hour to travel to the next nearest mussel farm.
Kasi dalawang makinang ginagamit, hindi naman pwede yung isa kasi ang layo. Mahirap maubusan kang gasolina sa yung kalakalo, maabala.
This March, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. declared a state of national energy emergency.
There's no doubt that the U.S. attack on Iran did trigger a huge oil crisis in the Philippines. Over 51% of the country's total energy consumption comes from oil, and about 99% of the country's oil is imported. Only about 20 to 25% comes from the Middle East. Unfortunately, the other oil sources in the region where the Philippines gets its refined products, as China, South Korea, they do get their oil from the Middle East. So directly, indirectly, I think it's quite safe to say that the largest part of Philippine oil imports come from the Middle East.
Further south of Manila Bay in Cavite, Edgar Escocia used to reel in a steady stock of seafood to sell at the market. These days, the catch is scarcely enough to feed his family. He no longer sails to his favourite fishing grounds now, due to fuel shortage.
Hindi kami makaisip na punta namin yung ganitong lugar kasi alam namin na doon meron. Kung ano lang yung umabot kami, yun lang.
He is among those that have given up fishing. He now works as a driver.
Dahil wala talagang mahuli. So sabi ko sa asawa ko, titigil muna ako kasi talo tayo sa gastos. Importante na sa amin may kakainin kami kahit paano. Hindi kami yung nakatunganga. Minsan pag nida-drive ko, magmula private hanggang 10-wheeler, kaya kong mag-drive. Ang lowest ngayon ma'am sa pag-drive ng on-call is 700. Depende pa ma'am sa layo.
News reports indicate that in some places, as many as half of subsistence fishermen have stopped going out to sea.
Well, relying on the official government data, before the oil price shock, there are about 1.4 million Filipinos employed in fishing and aquaculture. That was in February. In March, there was a 450,000 drop from February. The drop in employment between February and March was partly seasonal, but also aggravated by the oil price shocks, especially for the municipal fisher folk using gasoline as part of their cost of production. The volume of fisheries production in the country actually fell by over 15%. So in the end, their real incomes, I think, were very, very seriously hit.
The Philippines has limited refining capacity. Therefore, much of its refined fuel is imported. As of May, the country's fuel inventory is good for 45 days. That's below the recommended 90 days by the International Energy Agency.
If we look at the worst impact of the oil shock so far, they actually happened around the middle of April. At that time, diesel, for instance, the biggest oil energy source for transport, it increased by about 157% compared to the pre-oil crisis levels. That has moderated somewhat, but all things considered, oil now is still about 50 to 60% more expensive than before the crisis hit. I think that's a huge problem because with the Philippines being an archipelagic country, with the Philippines not having any railways, for instance, to make transporting food and goods cheaper across the country, that means we're heavily reliant on the most portable source of energy for ships, for trucks, for other vans and other small container vehicles is oil.
With fewer fishermen out at sea, market vendors are selling less seafood.
Dati kasi itong tambako kumukuha ko ng 40 kilos. Pero sa ngayon, kumukuha na lang ako mga 15 kilos. Kasi sa pakyawan, kasi minsan, pag maraming isda, kagaya nitong tambako, makukuha mo lang yan pag marami, 150 ang kilo. Pero pagka mataas ang isda, tumataas kasi. Nagiging 180 ang kilo sa pakyawan, minsan 200 mahigit, 250. Alam naman yun ng mga tindera eh. Kasi ang mga tindera, mga namimili yan, magugulat na lang bakit mahal.
This April, inflation surged to a 3-year high of 7.2%, before cooling slightly to 6.8% in May.
When Russia attacked Ukraine, inflation doubled in about 3 to 4 months and then almost tripled in 11 to 12 months. Right now, after the US attack on Iran, inflation has tripled in just 2 months. So we're actually seeing the biggest inflationary shock to the Philippine economy in over 30 years. A 7.1% inflation shock is about 1,500 pesos more for the consumption basket for the median Filipino household that earns 22,000 pesos.
Sa ngayon talaga, hindi na eh. Kita mo naman siguro, wala nang gasino. Pa-isa-isa na lang. Kasi dati isa-isa eh, di ba? Ngayon, hinahati na lang nila. Kagaya ko nga rin ng bangus. Kung 4 sila, minsan 4 na hiwa lang. Ngayon, ginagawa nilang 8. Kasi daw, para mamayang gabi naman nila. Nagtitipid din ng mga buyer.
Normita Tan lives in Tondo, one of Manila's poorest urban areas.
Konting negosyo, lumpiang Shanghai, toge, okoy, at meron din akong kanin na binabalot na paninda. Mag-uumpisa yung paninda namin, yan, 3 o'clock hanggang 5 na yan.
She lives off a daily wage of 1,500 pesos and her husband's pension.
Yung gas ko nga magkano lang sa litro, 153. Doon muna ako sa gas ko, 153 lang. Dito, 360. Kung mantika, magkano lang yung mantika dati niyan? 85. Ngayon, 100 na. Yun ang nakakagulat na, Diyos ko, paano ba to, kako? Yung gano'n na sistema, bibili mo na lang ng pagkain, ibibili mo pa ng mantika. Ititipid mo na nga.
Nearly half of Filipinos, about 49 or 50 million Filipinos, were declared moderately or severely food insecure even before the crisis. So when the oil price shocks hit, when the food price shocks hit, that actually means that a lot of Filipino families are spending less on food, and that is going to be hitting the poorest families the worst.
Minsan, yan nga, isang beses kakain kami. Talagang maaano mo sa sarili mo na kailangan tiis, di ba? Iba-budget mo talaga yung pera mo.
Particularly in Asia, food is a big share of the consumer basket for many countries. It's between 30 to 40%. So within Asia, Philippines actually stands out as one of the most exposed. It imports a big share of the rice.
The government has allocated 150 million pesos, about $8.5 million worth of fuel subsidies to support farmers and fisherfolk. Up to 45,000 of them will benefit from the aid.
The Philippines has about 10.3 to 10.4 million farmers and fisherfolk, so the few tens of thousands the government is helping is really a drop in the bucket. It did declare a national energy emergency, but in that same declaration, it said that their response would be within current appropriations in the budget. That's a problem. This is a budget drawn up in 2025 before the crisis, so presumably, any appreciation of the new and additional problem would mean mobilizing new and additional resources. But have an emergency declaration saying that we will respond given the current budget at hand, that actually compromises any sort of response.
Since March, Budoy has spent his free time repairing one of his 2 boats. It started to break apart from sitting idle at the dock.
Ano to, tapi, yung mga plywood na to, yun ang parka dito sa nabutas kasi to. Ito, may plywood pa nga sulta pa, bali, nabutas sa uli, 2 butas. Hindi ko po rin alam kung bakit naapektuhan tayo, hindi naman tayo kasama sa gira. Kaya, sana hindi tayo kasama, hindi tayo sana apektuhan.
Kaya sa Iran, sa ibang bansa, sa Middle East, aras na babalitaan namin. Iniisip na namin, sino ba ang dapat pagsakripisyo? Kami ba dapat?
With no off-ramp to the conflict in sight, what will be the consequences as the disruption drags on? It has been a month since we visited this rice field in Manikganj, Bangladesh.
এই বছর ধান লাগানি দেরি হয়েছে কারণ চৈত্র মাস ফাল্গুন মাসের শেষে চৈত্র মাসের মোটামুটি আধারিতে ধান লাগানো আরম্ভ হয়েছে আমার ক্ষেত্রে নিজস্ব ক্ষেত্রে পানি আসতে দেরি হয়েছে তাই এক মাস পরে পানি এসে আমার ক্ষেত্রে কারণ মেশিন যেখানে বসানো যেই সেন রোডের কাছাকাছি ওখান থেকে যে সমস্ত জমিতে পানি দিছে বা অগণিত জমি এই পশ্চিম সাইডে এবং পূর্ব সাইডে যে জমিগুলো ওই জমিগুলো পানি দিয়ে ভিজানোর পরে তারপর আমার কাছে পানি আসে
With the fuel shortage to run his water pumps, this may be his last rice harvest of the year. He does not intend to plant paddy for the Aman season, which starts this month and ends in October.
না এই জমিতে আর কোনো ফসল আবাদ করা যাবে না আমন ধান টান আর কোনো কিছু হবে না কারণ যথেষ্ট সার আগামীতে পাবো বা কি পাবো না এটা কেমন করে আশা করি কারণ দেশে বিভিন্ন প্রকারের গোলমাল যেমন যেই সমস্ত বিশ্বে যেই যুদ্ধ চলছে যুদ্ধে সব ব্যবসা বাণিজ্য বন্ধ মাল আপডাউন বন্ধ কাজেই মাল আপডাউন বন্ধ হতে মালই নাই
We're entering the 15th week since the US and Israel attacked Iran on 28th February. As of the end of May, an estimated 1,500 commercial ships are still stranded in the Gulf. Iran has since permitted some countries to transit through the strait, but traffic is well below pre-war levels.
Prior to the conflict, you had like almost close to 250 tankers transiting per day. That number now is down to less than 20 per day. So it's like more than a 90% drop in terms of tanker traffic. So that is quite significant.
The war on Iran could shape up to be what analysts call a long tail crisis, meaning even if the conflict ended today, the impact would take months to play out. Transit through the Hormuz Strait will remain high risk. The Iranian Consulate General in Mumbai posted a map on X in April, demarcating an area where anti-ship mines were laid. Shipping industry associations issued a guidance in May listing the hazards.
So even if you assume that the Strait of Hormuz opens today, it will take perhaps around 2 to 4 months to actually undo the damage that is caused. For instance, clearing the mines will take time. Giving confidence to the shipping companies to restart transiting through the Strait of Hormuz, will take time. And in general, we've seen a significant increase in the insurance war risk premium as well.
Additionally, damage to energy infrastructure in the region from Iran's retaliatory attacks will take even longer to rebuild.
So the initial assessment is maybe about a fifth of the export facility has been impacted. And restoration of these LNG plants, based on what companies are saying, will take at least 4 years to completely restore it. So it does look like, this is not just sort of a short-term disruption. And the expectation is that we will have oil closer to $100 in the near term, and then maybe still settling in closer to $80 per barrel.
For urea, a study by the International Food Policy Research Institute found that, assuming the straits remain blocked through 2026, fertiliser prices would only fall back to pre-crisis levels by early 2027. But this scenario assumes major fertilizer suppliers like China and Russia relax their export restrictions.
There are two issues. One is in terms of the time it takes if you contract something from Russia or Canada, the time it takes to actually transport that fertilizer ends up being quite long, so your freight shipping costs are quite high. And second, a lot of countries are trying to contract those fertilizers as well, so you're fighting for a smaller pie, and therefore there is of course the doubling of the price impact that is also seen.
Indian government is totally absorbing the global cost increase in cost. If nothing changes, meaning the Hormuz remains closed and things get worse, then our production will get affected because there's limits to how much fertilizer can we source from other parts.
Current stock of fertilizer is not sufficient for next crops, particularly for oats and almond production. However, Bangladesh government is trying to manage fertilizer from alternative sources, and also government is trying to import LNG and fuel from alternative sources. And at the same time, government is trying to use renewable energies to combat the shortage and short supply of fuel.
However, the question is whether stockpiles and government subsidies can outlast the conflict. Currently, there are little signs of an off-ramp in the war on Iran. Despite a fragile ceasefire, the US launched fresh attacks on Iran on the 25th of May. There has been sporadic exchange of fire since.
It seems unforeseeable for Iran and America to sort of resolve their differences even with an end to the war. Clearly, we're in a new normal in terms of the situation in West Asia right now. Clearly, geopolitical risk has heightened. Iran will hold its ground. The US has to hold its ground, otherwise it will be perceived as weak. So we actually don't see a quick end to the geopolitical price premium put on oil from the Middle East.
Meanwhile, the conflict has prompted a realignment of energy supply chains.
And what we see is there are different approaches that many countries are taking. Number one is essentially diversifying your supply mix, so essentially aiming to increase the share of non-fossil fuels, so more push on renewable energy as a source of the energy mix. We are also seeing an increase in nuclear power in the energy mix, more push on increasing the EV penetration in the country to reduce the dependence on petroleum products, for instance. Second is diversification of the source of your supplies. So new suppliers are being contracted either in Latin America, Western Africa, North America, Australia for LNG. Third is building more of these strategic buffers. Many of the developing countries did not have enough of the oil buffer. And even some of the more developed countries did not have enough of the LNG buffer.
We shall now proceed with the ASEAN handshake.
But these efforts will take time to materialize. Meanwhile, in Southeast Asia, ASEAN leaders met in May to address the fuel crisis. One measure was a push to ratify the ASEAN Petroleum Security Agreement. It proposes that member states supply fuel to others that encounter an energy crisis and to create a stockpile to draw from in emergencies. There were also talks of accelerating the ASEAN power grid, which aims to connect the national power grids in the region. Some have cast doubts over its progress.
I think the Philippines has a problem in terms of shifting to more renewable energy sources. Right now, we're very heavily dependent on fossil fuels. We're very heavily dependent on coal. Philippines is an archipelagic country. We cannot even sort out our own internal connectivity. I don't think it's realistic to expect that we can actually get some connectivity with an ASEAN grid in the mainland.
Across Asia, farmers are reaping the harvest of crops planted before the first missiles were fired in February. But as the Iran conflict continues to drag, fuel and fertiliser grow scarcer, putting the next harvest and perhaps the ones after in jeopardy.
যদি এই বছর থাকে তাহলে আগামী বছর খামারি বা বন্ধ হয়ে যাবে, এদিকে ধান আবাদ হবে না, আবাদ আমরা করবো না, কারণ আমি নিজেই যেই পাহিদি জমি আবাদ করি নি।
हम तो परमात्मा से यही उम्मीद करेंगे कि ये वार जल्दी से ख़त्म हो जाए और पूरे विश्व के अंदर शांति बने और हमारा व्यापार जैसे पहले चलता था उसी तरह व्यापार चले, और किसी भी देश के अंदर जो हमारे ख़रीदार देश हैं उनके अंदर आज चावल की कमी वो लोग महसूस कर रहे हैं। अगर ये वार लंबी बढ़ती है तो हम चावल का एक्सपोर्ट नहीं कर पाएंगे।
Baka matuluyan na talaga mga tao dito ng mangingisda. Wala na. Tumigil na. Ultimo mga ibang tao dito, construction na lang pinapasok.